So, thank you everybody for coming. Appreciate you finding the time today. We'll try and keep this as concise and actionable and to the point as we can. I know everybody's busy. Today, we want to talk through the untapped power of AI and call conversion data to boost your PPC performance and how one company has increased sales by 300% and how you can do the same to win more high quality clicks and sales from your PPC campaigns by focusing on call conversion data, which sadly is often overlooked. It seems like the ugly twin sister that's never involved. So it's something that Matt can talk to and help us get the most out of that. Here's an example of Stoneacre, who did exactly this, and we'll talk through how they achieved this today. They saw a 300% uplift in sales from their PPC campaigns, 79% increase in conversion rate from clicks to calls, and also the average order value increased by 21%, which is pretty impressive as well. So today what we'll do is we'll go through some quick intros, talk about AI bidding and how that works and the growth of that over the past few years. We'll talk a bit about why call conversion data is so key, but often so underused, and how Infinity is taking this a step further for their clients and for ours as well. And then a little live example of Stoneacre Group, followed by a short Q&A, and then we'll let everybody crack back on with their days. So in terms of intros, my name's Carl. I'm the CEO and co-founder here at Hewitt Matthews. We're a performance marketing agency based down in Hampshire. We specialize in paid search and social with over 100 active clients across all our services. We've been running for just over 8 years now. And I don't know if you know this, Matt, but our first ever PPC account that we ran, we used Infinity call tracking on all those years ago. So
What a nice bit of trivia.
Yeah, we've been big advocates of you for a long, long time, hence why we're here. So I'll hand over to you to introduce yourself and Infinity.
Cheers. Hey, everyone. I'm Matt McGillicuddy. I'm the head of growth marketing at Infinity. So for those of you who aren't familiar, Infinity is EMEA's leading call tracking and speech analytics platform. So what does that mean for us marketing folk? Essentially, we were born to solve a critical problem for marketers almost 15 years ago now. And that's to fill that attribution blind spot that gets created when an online journey goes offline as a prospect picks up the phone to get in touch with us. So I'm not sure how familiar we are with call tracking. Everybody on this call, give us a sort of a yes or a no in the chat. That would be good just to get a gauge for how familiar we are as a group with the technology. And whilst you're doing that, I will explain why it's important. Carl's obviously mentioned you called it the ugly sister, which isn't very kind, really, Carl, to be honest. But it's so true that it is often overlooked as a source of insight, a source of conversion data that we should be using to optimize campaigns. Now, fundamentally, if we aren't paying attention to that data, we're not reporting our true impact. The total impact of our campaigns is not being captured in our reports. And worse, we only get a partial view of what performance is really looking like. So that makes it very hard to optimize fully. So essentially, that's why we were created all those years ago, to help marketers capture that conversion data in a really easy way and report on it and use it to inform optimization decisions. So we'll get into this much more later on, but that is really just the tip of the iceberg, because as the suite's evolved over the last decade or so, we've got some really snazzy features and tools now that can really help deepen customer understanding and take that optimization a little bit further. But more on that later.
Definitely. It's been really cool to see the tool evolve over the last 8 years, so I'm excited to get into that. We've got a quick question, very much as Matt touched on there. Actually, we're interested to know, and we'll launch a poll in the webinar here. But the first question is, would you say you're actively using AI in your marketing efforts in one way or another at the moment? And how do you track call conversions right now? Is it that you might use something like Google's own tracking or the in-platform software, or perhaps you use a third-party software? So interested to hear your thoughts on these and what people are doing. We've got someone using third-party software already, which is great. Already using AI. Yeah. Fair few people in platform or not tracking calls. A good mix there, 50-50 for using AI or not in one way or another. And an exact 33% on the other ones as well. 3 answers. Nice, okay. So more people than not are not using AI at the minute. the most common at the moment is to not track calls, but equal on third party or in platform tracking as well. Interesting. Okay.
It is interesting. I guess there's also another flip side to that, isn't there? In terms of, because it's obviously, there's no doubt the power of AI tools in terms of when it comes to helping us, even if it's just improve productivity, so we can do more of the stuff that we want and need to do. But I guess there's the other lens to look at it in terms of how happy are we with the results that we're getting with those AI tools as well. I remember reading the other day, actually, in a Salesforce survey, that I think it was 1 in 3 marketers are pretty unhappy with the results they're getting from AI tools, which is a bit shocking, really, isn't it?
It is. I think that's the thing with so many AI tools available on the market now as well. That is the thing people are worried about, is they're not all the same. They all provide a different level of accuracy and output. So it's a very good point. I think that's a lot of the hesitation that people have around these tools. So on that note, I think what would be good is to give a bit of background as to the rise of AI bidding and what that actually means. Because again, there are a lot of different versions of this. This is a very sort of broad brush term for what different platforms are doing. But essentially, I think we should start by defining it. And what AI bidding really is the process of using machine learning and artificial intelligence to identify users in an auction who have the highest potential to be high value to you as a business, based on various different signals and characteristics about that user, which machine learning and AI has picked up from historic data, and they match up and hit the criteria of somebody who previously was worth a lot of money and was high value to you as a business. It starts to spot those trends and similarities and then know who to go after on your behalf when you're entering into an auction with your ads. A lot of people are calling this kind of Google's black box. When you talk about Google's AI bidding, people are having to give up a lot more granular control and let Google do more without us as marketers knowing every specific detail about bids, and kind of just trust Google and Meta and these platforms, which is a far cry from how it used to be when we first started, when it was a lot more manual CPC, single keyword ad groups, all this kind of stuff. It's really changed and really evolved. And I think, in all honesty, these machine learning and AI tools are here to stay. And so it's our job to work with it and not against it. We've seen things like smart bidding, PMax, Advantage Plus becoming more and more powerful. Every platform is trying to develop them faster than the other. And so the writing's been on the wall for a while here. And you will still hear stories of people switching back to manual CPC or taking back the reins and seeing great results. And absolutely, there's still a place for that. There are still some nuanced instances where that works. But I think AI and machine learning is more profitable for a lot more businesses than the kind of old school techniques of more manual management. And so it's something that I think a lot of businesses should really lean into, but it has to be done carefully and you have to know how to get the most out of it. Otherwise, it can really backfire. So to do that, we need to understand how it then works. So we said before about what it is as a whole in terms of identifying those potential users with high value, but how does it actually do that? So these AI tools rely extremely heavily on accurate and good quality data that you have to feed it. I often say it's very much like delegating a task to somebody in person. The more context, the more data, the better brief that you give it, the more likely that outcome is going to be aligned with what you expected, and you're going to get the result you wanted. And I think a lot of the time I see people implement things like smart bidding for Google search, whether they're doing max conversions or max conversion value, any of these different smart bidding strategies, and they might not get what they wanted back. And often when you look into the data they've been feeding it, they've been giving Google very little and actually been giving it very little direction. So you can't expect to have something fantastic come back to you. It's that kind of garbage in, garbage out saying that a lot of people talk about with AI. And I think a good example of this is kind of if you take a hotel booking campaign or a travel campaign. Yes, you might be driving lots of calls from your Google ads, and that's great, and you see that conversion as a call. But what was the outcome of that? If Google doesn't know that that person booked a room or booked a holiday, how much revenue they were worth, what keyword it came from, or whether it was a customer just looking for a service call and you've spent money on that, it doesn't know who to optimize for. And so it's really important that you feed that back into AI to make it work properly for you and to get the very best out of it. And I think from previous chats, Matt, I think you've seen a lot of those kind of cases where people have been bidding on a lot of service calls and haven't been aware of it. And then once they see that data, immediately they can make that switch to make their spend a lot more efficient. So I don't think it's uncommon.
No, absolutely not. And I think it is really important to remember that the tools can only perform as well as the insight, that you feed it into them. If you aren't signaling what you want the result to be, it's very hard for that tool, as clever as it is, to drive that result. So it's our job really to make sure that we're hot on the data.
Absolutely. And so all in all, I think these AI bid tools are allowing us to work a lot faster, a lot smarter, and allowing us to win more. But the thing is, I think there's this saying that I totally agree with, that we're not against AI as marketers. We're against other marketers who are using AI better than us. And this is a really good opportunity to win. If you can push better data into your AI tools and leverage them better, you will win over other marketers who aren't doing that properly. And that's very much what this is about today, is how can you get even more high quality data back into these platforms like Meta and Google to get the very most out of them. So this is the point at which I'll kind of hand over more to you, Matt, to cover that point and how we can pull that from call conversion data.
Absolutely. And look, this is something that we absolutely shouldn't be scared of. We do need to embrace AI tools. They're just another type of tool to help us win. That's the way sort of my team look at it. That's sort of how we've been embracing the tech since it's become more accessible. And it is really the job that we have to play is being able to sort of fine tune and instruct those tools by giving them data to make sure that they produce the outcomes that we want them to. So it's like when I was saying earlier that the initial solution that we were formed to solve, filling that attribution blind spot, making sure marketers have a full set of conversion data, that really is the first step. It's great that people pick up the phone to get in touch. Obviously, all marketers want that. We want people to respond positively to our campaigns. But without a robust tracking solution in place, that does create a huge problem because it blows a massive hole in your conversion data. And we've really got to consider the role that phone calls play in purchases as well. It's actually a super strong signal of engagement and intent. If you think about the last time that you picked up the phone, you don't dial a company by accident, do you? There's a clear intent to get in touch. And when we think about that example you mentioned, Carl, booking a holiday, if you're about to spend 20 grand on a big family cruise, I mean, I won't be clicking buy now on a website. I'm going to ring up. I'm going to have 1,000,001 questions, but that's because I'm northern and tight. So I have 1,000,000 questions, and it's baked into me that I have to ask for discount just to make sure that I feel like I'm winning on some level. But it's the same. It's not just holidays, is it? It's like when we take an insurance policy, anything that's a considered purchase. We want to pick up the phone. So as I say, that's why Infinity was initially created, to plug that gap. So we could tie those core conversions back to campaigns and channels and individual keywords and see what is working, so we can make smarter, more informed optimization decisions with a much broader set of data. Now that principle is still the same with these AI tools, but instead of us making that decision sort of manually informing bids, but we're making that process a little bit faster and doing this in real time by feeding that data into a tool. So it does amaze me how often it's overlooked. And you mentioned before, Carl, obviously that story we've talked about 1,000,000 times around not all conversions are created equal. And it's that next step that's super important as well, where we start trying to understand, okay, a call happened, but what was the quality of that call? How good was it? What was the intent? What was the outcome? So we can make sure that every pound we're spending on PPC and any other paid media is being spent on driving the right results. It always amazes me. I think the worst I've ever seen is a client that came to us who was spending literally millions of pounds a month on paid media, and 70% of the calls were service calls or not sales calls. And it's like, hey, that's a huge chunk of wasted budget that we can fix by being a little bit more robust with how we track and how we measure. And this is really how the platform is evolving and sort of where we're going next, to try and make that even simpler for marketers, because I know how difficult it is for us to find the time sometimes to pull data sets together and to be able to feed that data into our tech stack. So what we've been working on really is a way to get that outcome data, that high value data, into those bidding tools as quickly as possible, so we can connect not just the fact that a call conversion happened, but a positive outcome back to those campaigns and keywords and create this really, really brilliantly positive feedback loop where we're just signaling to these tools, hey, these are the conversions that we want to focus on. Please drive more of them in a nutshell.
Fantastic. Should I pop up the diagram of how you guys have been working, what you've been doing on this?
Yeah, absolutely. Because it does sound like witchcraft, doesn't it? When you sort of go, hey, this is what we're doing with this this high value conversion data. But the truth is it really is simple, and this is something that's super accessible for every marketer to do. And it's what we should be doing if we're working in a sector where the inbound phone call plays an important part of pipeline generation. So we've got a really clever tool in our suite called conversation analytics. So where traditionally call tracking tells us what happened before a call, so what channels and keywords led to a call conversion. Conversation analytics is totally AI powered, and it's clever enough to understand the context of a call. So we can understand what trends were mentioned, what topics were mentioned, what the intent of the caller was, and importantly, what the outcome was. So for instance, if it was that holiday example we were talking about before, conversation analytics is smart enough to go, hey, this phone call occurred because somebody was interested in making a booking, not a service inquiry, but making a booking, and this call ended in a positive result. A booking was made. So we can start building these goals, these signals around those positive outcomes, and automatically feed that data back into our bidding tools, into our tech stack. So every call that gets made, every conversion that happens, we're using that data to automatically drive down cost per lead and maximize our return on ad spend. So it's as I say, criminally simple almost, but critical in terms of making sure that when we consider high value conversion data, we need to give the tools that we're trying to use to make our bidding a little bit smarter and more effective, those high value signals. Otherwise, they just simply can't do the job.
Definitely. And I think, to be honest, what's on this next slide is what really excites me. It's a really good sort of tangible example of how this works, where, again, you take that kind of that motor example. Here's an example of a call summary where it says, Mrs. X is looking to trade her Yaris for a new Yaris Cross. It talks about how they offered a £500 discount for existing customers, summarizes the intent, the final outcome, that she agreed to a quote from the agent to take on the Yaris Cross GR Sport model. It's so in detail, it's so in depth, and this is such valuable data that you can then feed back through. And I think it's so interesting and fascinating that we're at this point now with the tool, from where we first picked up together 8 years ago working on this to now, how far it's come and how much value it can add. I think this kind of screenshot here is just a really good sort of distillation of everything we talked about and what you can actually get out of this tool. You don't have to do manually anymore.
Totally. And I think this is really where our view as marketers needs to shift slightly. And I know that's a very general statement for me to make, because of course there are lots of marketers that are on board with AI tools and are really embracing them. But I'll be honest, there was even sort of resistance in my team for a while, where it is almost like, hey, is this replacing us? Is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? But the simple fact is, this rich data that is trapped in these real conversations with customers, this isn't stuff that's susceptible to skew and bias like reviews. It's not expensive for us to gather that data using sort of traditional surveying tactics and methods. This rich insight we would never have been able to unlock without AI to help us go through this at scale. If you think, even if you had sort of a low number of calls coming into the business every day, let's just say 100 calls, can you imagine the time it'd take for an individual marketer to sit and listen to that, write the insight out, summarize it, then go, actually, what does this mean for my messaging? What does this mean for my bidding tactics, and then go and implement that? It's a crazy notion to try and do that manually, isn't it?
Absolutely. No, it's great. And I think there's so much value in there. And as well, there's levels to this, right? So, just that basic call conversion tracking is one thing, but you guys have this kind of cool data maturity sort of map here, which I really like. And it's something that we're trying to sort of work with a few of our clients on the moment to see what level we can bring them to on this. But I really like this as an overview as to even just starting small, the foundational pieces have such a massive impact. But then there is still a long way to go if you really want to win and you really want that marginal gain. I think in businesses like insurance, where it's very much price driven, it's very competitive. Any marginal gain you can get is huge in that space. And so looking at this maturity sort of framework, I think is really helpful for a lot of those types of businesses as well.
100%, and it can still be quite an obscure concept for many marketing teams and many businesses. It is important to sort of view it as very accessible baby steps. Firstly starting by filling that attribution blind spot, and then we've talked about some really advanced stuff there in terms of building like an automated feedback loop using intent and outcome data. But as you can see, there's still a way to go in terms of reaching full sort of maturity, because when we start being open to using core data as a source of insight and really using it to deepen our understanding of our customers, the possibilities become vast, really, in terms of what we can do. We can start using sort of the themes and the trends that come up in conversations to inform messaging and shape campaigns and make sure that we're really delivering what's going to resonate with customers, but improve user experiences even by understanding what's driving contact and what the expectation is. And the big one for me is really making sure that you joined at the hips with your sales team, and that it's not siloed. It amazes me still, this isn't a secret, that the more closely and the more nicely sales and marketing work together, the better the results for everybody. Now, by being able to use the phone call data and the phone call as a key sort of touch point and sharing that data across the two teams, you can do some really amazing things, piping that sort of call intent data and the history that you get by tracking the online journey and connect it to a call straight into the agents that are handling the calls. That can have a massive impact on conversion rate. And for me, that's the real secret, because imagine, who wouldn't want the sales team to convert, one more in every 10 leads you send their way? I'd love that. That'd make a massive difference to my, cost per acquisition, cost per lead. So it really is, a very, very broad set of use cases you can sort of deploy just by paying attention to this data.
Definitely. And that's exactly what Stoneacre did, that to sort of achieve these results. And again, I think it's just astounding what can be done with it by simply plugging this in. It's data that's already available to you. It's just then making the most of that and feeding that back through. And it's a really nice partnership that we can have there with things like PPC and paid search, paid social, using Infinity to feed that back through. So yeah, really exciting stuff. And hopefully that's given everyone a bit to think about. We've got a Q&A section coming up. So if anybody does have any questions, now is the time to pop them into the chat, and Matt and I know. But yeah, I think hopefully that's been useful to everyone and given some food for thought there. Let's have a quick look. At the moment, any questions at all? We'll be sending out an email after this as well with contact details and things like that. If anybody does have any other further questions they want to drop back our way. And actually, we've got some contact details here as well. But I think the sort of big thing for me is, if you do feel that perhaps your call tracking, well, here we go. So does the call tracker help with SEO? Potentially it could do, I suppose, if you learn about what kind of intent and key terms and searches people are making. I suppose, Matt, have you ever seen any use cases?
Absolutely, yeah. So there's two ways really. So one, it helps us measure all of the conversions that are driven from organic search. So again, we can really not just connect our SEO tactics and plan to page visits, page views, sessions, etc., but to revenue, which is really what we want to be doing to sort of drive an effective SEO plan. And then also, Carl, as you mentioned there as well, understanding common topics, common themes that we start to see emerging as offers change and as demand changes in a market. So it gives us a really good early warning signal almost to go, hey, maybe we need to sort of bake this into the plan as well. So yeah, there's definitely those two approaches we can take to support SEO there.
Amazing. got a couple of others here as well. First one around, how does call insights tracking work with GDPR and confidentiality? I imagine that's a question you get quite a lot, Matt.
It is. It's totally compliant. The other thing that is worth noting as well, because there are always concerns about data privacy and data security. We're actually an ISO approved platform, so we're ISO certified. So we take data security massively seriously, as I'm sure you can imagine. So yeah, I'm happy to send some information out on that if anyone has any specifics. But rather than reading you all death by terms and conditions and privacy policies, yeah, if you need any more information, just drop me an email and happy to share.
Right. Got another one here from Martin around, can you therefore use the data to unoptimize traffic at, say, weekends and in the evenings when a contact center is closed, but where traffic is high? So, for example, a Sunday night.
This is really interesting, actually, because this is something that our data gets used for an awful lot, is in identifying those peak times, those peak contact times, and using that to inform rotas and staffing decisions to make sure that the contact center agents are being deployed effectively. So yeah, we have a very simple report called missed call reports, and it's a very, very base, very simple use case. But if we can see that we're spending money on paid media tactics and those conversions aren't ending up anywhere because calls aren't being answered, we can understand what those contact trends look like and use that to inform the time that we're deploying ad and deploying spends.
Absolutely, I think that's it. And you can, as you've touched on there, start to optimize then your ad schedule and your sort of bid adjustments through different times. It may be that perhaps you find if your call center or your contact center is closed entirely, that you need to turn off your ads at a certain time of day to avoid spending any money on those inbound calls and turning it back on at the time. So yeah, certainly can help with that piece there. And then we have one more question here from Lucy, who says, we are not currently tracking calls, but about to start. What are the main things to consider in getting set up, and what is the ideal MarTech that this would be compatible with?
Okay, that's a really good question, because for me, it's not a case of defining the ideal MarTech. It's about making it work with your current tech stack. So we've got 45 out of the box integrations, plus a really fantastically clever and skilled dev team that can help make sure that data ends up where you need it to be. So what I'd always suggest is really understanding what you're trying to achieve by implementing tracking. Is it like we've talked about today, optimizing paid media deployment? And if so, that should be really where you start working back from. So going, okay, what does this solution need to deliver for me to be able to do this with the existing tech that I've got and in as shorter, least disruptive time frame as possible. So if you do want to jump on a call, Lucy, and have a chat about it sort of after this, totally open to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the thing, isn't it? It's what works best for you and what tech stack you're currently using, as you said there, Matt. It's how can it be integrated with as little disruption as possible to get you tracking and stop any impact on anything else. Lucy's asked, how different is this to something like Qualtrics as well? Again, I imagine that might be a common question. I'm not sure.
To be honest, I'd have to go away and have a look at Qualtrics to give you a proper, well-rounded answer. But as I say, happy to have a call sort of after this, and we can chat it through one marketer to another.
Great. Brilliant. No problem at all there, Lucy. Any questions other than that? Any further questions for Matt or myself at the moment? We're just coming up to over the half-hour mark, so I don't want to take up too much of people's time. If you do have further questions, obviously feel free to email us, and we will drop you an email after this as well as a summary. But if you do have questions, you think your call tracking might not be up to scratch, get in touch with Matt, who I'm sure will be happy to jump on a call, as he's just said, to talk you through that. And if you'd like some help putting that into practice with your PPC, drop me a note. We work very closely with Infinity and can make sure that it's set up properly for what you're after, or even just some advice. Always more than happy to have a chat about marketing. I think that's always a given. So yeah, thank you very much, everybody, for coming along today. I hope that was useful for everyone. And as I say, any further questions or thoughts, please do feel free to drop Matt or I a message anytime. Thanks a lot. Cheers, everyone. Bye for now.